Some of God's most precious gifts come in unexpected packages. When His children embrace them with thankful hearts, full of faith, trusting in Him, we are all enriched by their example. Courtney Westlake is here from Springfield, Illinois, to tell us about a different beautiful. She's been discovering and celebrating beauty in places that she never expected. On December 19th, 2011, Evan, your husband Courtney, had to make a U-turn on his way to Indianapolis, almost there, because your baby daughter decided to arrive 4 months early. But she was born critically ill and in pain. Can you take us back to that, I'm sure, very difficult day?
Yes, I went into labor on December 19th, and it was a big surprise. Evan was on his way to a business trip, and we had a very typical pregnancy. So, when Brenna was about to be born, the doctor said, it looks like she has some very thick vernix. I've never seen vernix this thick, which is that stuff that covers the babies when they're born.
Kind of a cheesy...
Yeah, that cottage cheesy, junk, I guess. And when she was born, the whole medical staff in the room just panicked, and they called immediately for a neonatologist. And Evan almost fainted at the sight of Brenna. And I was so confused about what was going on and, what was wrong.
We have the newborn picture, and I had not seen it. It wasn't in the pictures I saw even at your blog site. Oh my. And the really big name for this genetic disorder is?
It's called Harlequin ichthyosis. There are 28 different kinds of ichthyosis, and Harlequin is the most severe type.
It took you 2 or 3 days to grasp how serious this was.
Yes, I had to stay in the hospital for another day after giving birth, and so Evan got to go over and meet with our medical team at the NICU. And so he really began to realize how critical she was, and it really took me another few days. I tried to stay away from the internet so that I could get all of the information from our medical doctors who were treating her. But when we had a meeting with our medical team and they were talking more about pain management than about going home, that's when I fully began to realize that she was extremely critical and just how life-threatening this was.
I needed to be reminded how important our skin is and what it does for us. Keeps the water in, keeps the germs out,
right.
Regulates our body temperature. These are all critical issues for Brenna.
Yes. And when she was born, these issues were just magnified. Her body overproduces skin about 10 times faster than we do. So all of that skin had built up over the 9 months in utero. And so she had these very painful cracks in her skin, and she was very susceptible to infection at that time.
And in fact, nearly died at Christmas Eve. The family was all there, and you were praying, oh God, don't let her die on Christmas.
Yes, I got a call late on Christmas Eve from Evan, who had gone to say goodnight at the hospital. And he called and said, you need to get here. And so I got there, and they said, it doesn't look good. If her breathing gets any worse, we're not sure if there's anything that we can do. And so my parents came, and Evan's parents were unfortunately out of the country, and they felt so helpless. And we sat by her bedside all night, just crying and praying.
One of the first encouragements in the book, as we're all trying to grasp, and I have to say, Courtney, weeping with you over the loss, an immediate realization of the loss of the dream of the little girl with pigtails who would bounce on Daddy's knee. This is a whole new reality. You say God offered me Himself, His love and guidance. That must have been very real in this traumatic time.
I have never felt more strongly God's presence in my life than I did that Christmas Eve night in Brenna's NICU, in her NICU room. And it's indescribable, the feeling that gave me, that I knew that God was there for us that entire time. It wasn't that God was, giving us what we could handle. It was that He was giving us Himself. He was right there with us and would be with us no matter what happened.
You know, I'm glad you put the picture right on the cover of the book. You've got a little pinkling, and not in the way that we would normally expect. And there are very hard things as she's growing up, 4 now, about the size of a 2-year-old.
Yes.
You get people judging. It's hard enough to deal with the stares, the second looks. But some people think you're just an irresponsible mother leaving that child out in the sun too long.
Right, right. It is probably one of the most common assumptions is that she's been, severely sunburned. And it's really hard as a mom that they're judging me like that. We get a lot of stares and questions, and we get a lot of glares from people who assume that. And we hear comments under people's breaths about it, and that's really hard not to get defensive about that.
We're going to be looking at some of the lovely pictures that you provided as we talk more about this. Part of your mission is to help parents help their children in a world where there are differences. Now, this particular disease, not something they're likely to encounter, but there are lots of reasons that people are different. And you've really become a champion of inclusivity, of embracing and connecting, not staring and not looking away, but actually steadying the gaze and connecting with the people we meet.
Right. I mean, eye contact conveys so much. And when we can just meet the eyes of other people and give them a smile, I think that does so much to just connect us with them. We don't have to know the whole story to be kind.
You know, there's a couple of unexpected surprises in the book. You talk about a famous fashion photographer who had a complete change of career after encountering an albino woman. Now, I have seen an albino woman in Africa and just came back from Africa. And in Malawi, albinism is a huge concern right now. They are killing albino children. This man was deeply impacted. Tell us quickly what he did.
Rick Gudati is his name, and he saw an albino woman on the street one day and just was so touched by how remarkably beautiful she was. And so he went and he started researching albinism and realized that people weren't showing the beauty of this condition. They were only showing the medical side of it. And he wondered where the humanity was in these conditions. So he gave up his fashion career, fashion photography, and he began just shooting photographs of people all over the world with different conditions and different disabilities, and has just created this whole mission around this.
Positive exposure. What a great name.
Yes.
And he says, change how you see how you change.
Yes.
That's your heartbeat. You want parents to read their children, books about difference, about being different.
Right.
And your life will continue to be different, Courtney.
I think what I try to tell everybody is that we are all different. I don't want people to see Brenna as just the different one. I want everyone to know. I want everyone to know that we are all created so uniquely, so differently by God. And when we can start seeing that, we don't see other people as the different ones. We see everybody as different, and all of our differences should be appreciated. And what unites us is our shared humanity, the fact that we were all created by God. It's
interesting that Connor, who was almost 2 when his sister was born, didn't register any difference for quite a long time.
No, and it wasn't until he was almost 5 that he even brought up Brenna's skin. And I think really the only reason that he did is because so many people have asked about it. And the way I explain it is that, she has special skin, and that's how she was born. And I think that helps a lot of people, realize why she looks that way. And even to this day, he doesn't ask about other kids' differences. If he sees someone in a wheelchair, that's no big deal. He sees kids as kids first, and their appearances second.
Oh, if we could all be like that. You make a profound statement in the book. You say, before our daughter was born, I wasn't truly living. I was only thinking about living.
I was. I I feel like before Brenna was born, I had a much greater tendency to look at people and make more of a judgment about what I think I know about them. And after Brenna's birth, it has really shown me that there's so much more to people's stories when we really take the time to get to know their hearts instead of what we think we see, and to redefine that beauty in our lives. It's not, it's not found in the fashion magazines. It's found right within us. And I think we all just need to, it's natural to want to judge people at first glance, but when we make a conscious decision to step back and get to know them for who they are, I think that's when we can really begin to celebrate the different kinds of beautiful around us.
I'm sure people have all kinds of questions about just how you get through daily life. Special cream. This is a little girl who can't have exposure to very much sun. It is a challenge. It's one you've embraced with so much love, and I just have to quickly. My shoulders went up and down when I got to the place in the book about the homeless man, and I just wonder if this trust from God has a lot to do with a man you suspected, someone you'd seen months and months earlier on the street outside the Walmart. Mm-hmm. You wondered if he had exactly the same condition as Brenna. And what did you find?
Well, we had heard about him, and when I saw him up close one day, it was at Target. And I just knew, that that's who it was. And so I asked him about it, and we ended up talking right there in the Target toy aisle. And then, I tried to find him after that, and it took me a few weeks, and finally on Brenna's third birthday, I found him again, and we sat and we enjoyed breakfast together at the Target Cafe. And
you got him some medical help.
We did. We worked through some of our own medical team to get him in to see a dermatologist the first time he's been in years. And my parents worked so hard to get him into an apartment of his own.
It's a God story. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for living it so courageously.
Thank you.
And we need to be praying for the Westlake family. I love the message of this book about a different beautiful that's found in the uniqueness God has bestowed on every single one of us and the gifts He's placed within us to be shared with the world if we choose to trust in Him and tell His story with our lives and our gifts. That's a Courtney quote. Thank you, Courtney.